Chairman, you're live.
Okay, call the meeting to order, please. Thank you for joining us here and elsewhere for the school board meeting tonight. Thank you. Let's do the start with the pledge, please. The pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. Our next meeting will be held Thursday, October 1st, 5 p.m. Here in the office, and I believe we've got permission to go virtually again next month. We need to do that, so we've got that. One of the things that's come out in the executive order is that we need to be sure that whoever is speaking is clearly identified. So I may, if you interject something, I may interrupt you and say, this is Mr. Sims talking or something like that, so that we have that. So it did come out in one of the executive orders that everybody who's participating needs to be clearly identified. So unless y'all want to gather up around here with us or not, probably need to do that. So do that. We want to extend sympathy this evening to several of our family members. Ashley Meadows, who's lost her mother. Jared Neal, who's lost his grandmother. Steve Stigall, lost his mother-in-law. And Tara Hughes, loss of her grandmother. We certainly extend our condolences to these families and the loss of our Weakley County School family. Entertain a motion now to approve the agenda. The agenda was distributed and we have it here in front of us at this time. Is there does not appear to be any additions to the agenda, so is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Your second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions about the agenda before us tonight? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. You also have the minutes from the August 6th school board meeting presented as well. Is there a motion to approve these minutes? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions about the minutes as presented to us this evening? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item of business is election of the board officers. I will ask Mr. Frazier to step in and take over this time.
Okay, at this time, we need to elect a board chairman for the 2021 school year. And so I'll open the floor. We have nominations for school board chairman this upcoming year.
Steve Antry continue to serve in that capacity.
So we've got a nomination by Mr. Hatler and a second by Mr. Mills. Are there other nominations?
Move nominations cease.
Movement's been made to cease nominations. If there are no further nominations, all vote in approval of Steve say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you. Pleasure to lead this austere group, and I'll try to do my best not to break any laws or mess anything up.
You did a good job, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's awful kind of you, Gav. Okay, we'll entertain nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Josh Moore.
Josh Moore, is there no second? Any other nominations? All in favor of electing Josh Moore as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Moore. Tennessee Legislative Network representative. I need is there a nomination for someone to serve in that capacity? A nomination of Kim Longhair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any other nominations for Tennessee Legislative Network representative? All in favor of electing Kim, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Longhair. Pleasure to serve with you all again with this great group. We have a budget, the resolutions and transfers on the agenda for us tonight. I believe we have resolution 2020-104. See the Cliff Notes version on that, please?
Yeah, like motion.
The motion to consider resolution 2020-104.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All right. Any questions about this resolution, Mr. Frazier? You want to?
Well, this is a general purpose resolution, but it involves special ed dollars. You can see we received an additional $75,000, which is called a transition school to work budget. And we're going to be hiring a person through this grant in order to help transition some of our special needs children from high school into their next setting, whether it be career or home, in particular, some of our special needs CDC population we can transition into maybe a work setting. We were interested last year. It didn't come to fruition, but we're excited to be able to do that. So that's what you see with the $75,000, the very bottom portion. We're cost centering that TRN, transition to work. And then the middle part of that is just moving some general monies around. As we've gotten into this year, you can see other salaries and wages. We're having to hire some more contracted speech therapy and some other services in addition to what we normally have to meet the needs of some of our students, in particular that maybe we got behind with some coverage when schools were closed, and then some general things like contracting with private agencies, some similar services, and then contracting with parents is when they travel their student to Tennessee School for the Deaf, provide that transportation.
Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Any additional questions? All in favor of approval of resolution 2020-104, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The resolution is passed. A federal resolution number 142-2101, is there a motion to consider this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Ms. Frazier, you want to tell us what's
Yes.
going on with this one, please?
This resolution is all federal money. There's no local dollars involved with that. And three things you'll see in the revenue code that we're able to carry over dollars, in particular a little bit more than normal. Then school ended the way it did last year. So you'll see we're moving some of our reserve dollars back into the regular special ed budget. And the very last one is also preschool carryover. And we're just fluctuating our expenditures within the budget. For example, teacher line has gone up. We're having to do more after school check-ins and things at the teacher level with some of our students that are doing the at-home learning. It's above and beyond the regular day work period for some of our folks. So, and I'm sure this will continue to be fluid throughout the year. Special situations we're dealing with the CARES Act and federal dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Any additional questions about the transactions included in this resolution? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Resolution 142-2101 is approved. I believe that's all the transfers I believe we have.
Yes.
Okay, next item of business is to discuss our sick leave policy. We started that discussion last month. Mr. Frazier, I believe you presented that information to the legal staff.
I did, and I have an update. I've had a couple conversations with Mr. Jackson, our board attorney, and he recommends that the board do not draft a special policy at this time because he said the federal law is still in act for the Family First Act until December 31st. And he said if you do anything differently, you could be in conflict with the federal law. He said he would recommend for the board if they would allow me as director to have a case-by-case authority to look if there's some special situations where teachers may have to go beyond that period of time. We could provide substitute teachers or whatever need be. He said, but if you put it in a form of policy until this one goes away at the federal level, we could have a conflict. So my request would be, let's not do a policy, follow the federal law. If you all allow me the authority, I'll address each situation on a case by case if it goes above and beyond what the federal authority currently allows.
Any questions or comments about the interpretation from legal staff?
Make a motion that we grant Director Frazier the necessary authority to handle this on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, have that in motion. There's a second. Second. All right. Any discussion about that motion? The only question I've got is where does this sick leave bank issue fit into this whole discussion? Is that
It's sick leave bank is completely separate from this. You have to be a member, and once you're a member and you add days into that bank, you can request days to be used out of that bank, but it has to be for you personally and your illness. Quarantine would not fall in there and be in an isolation or having to care for a family person. So it's really two separate.
Okay.
Our sick leave bank will handle it as we've always done.
Any additional questions? All in favor of approving this motion to grant the director latitude in handling situations outside of the norm, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. That's not the exact motion, but you have to vote. Great. Parent-teacher conferences.
Yes, there's really not any action you all take, but I want to put it on the agenda and have a conversation, kind of tell you what our thoughts were. Normally, we have the third Thursday in September, we dismiss it to lunch, and we say from 12 to 6, parents can come and have parent-teacher conference. I just want you all to realize that we're going to try to be a little more structured with it this year and organize that. And we may schedule times for parents to come. We may even spread this out on more than one day, if you all are okay with that. Some parents have already requested, they're fine with the teacher scheduling a Zoom with them rather than coming live. But we don't want to have a situation where we've got a lot of people waiting to see teachers and standing in hallways doing those things. We're just going to try to be organized, and it might even look different. Kind of like in the winter, our Martin schools may have different days. We may do the same thing this year. The only change that would mean, if we decide to do that, we may go all day that day rather than half a day in some places. But we'll work on that, and I'll share that with you, and amongst the schools try to come up with a plan that best fits what they're doing and serves the needs of their parents.
Any questions about the procedures for parent-teacher conferences as they stand right now? Sounds like a good idea.
We're required by law to have one a year. We normally have two, so as long as we have one sometime during the calendar year.
Okay. I would imagine parents are interested in seeing, keeping up with the progress, maybe even more so, or just do it this year than the past. So we can accommodate. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. All right, we have a couple of volunteer coaches on the agenda for consideration tonight. Is there a motion to approve these volunteer coaches? Your second? Any questions about either of these individuals at Greenfield or at Westview? All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. All opposed? They are approved. Ms. Frazier, committee reports. I don't know if we have any special committee reports or not. Frazier, you want to talk about your director's report?
I have several things that we can cover and information I want to share with you all, and you feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try to clear up. I would say overall the report today is good. We're going to finish our third week of school tomorrow, and I've said this openly. I can't brag enough on the work that our folks did preparing for school to open. It's made a difference. It looks different, but it's made a difference. And when you talk to other places and other school districts and other areas that are maybe having even more problems we've encountered, I don't think they've taken the precautions that we've tried to take. And so I just thank our safety teams and our administrators and our teachers that have worked toward that. An update, which is not the most positive news, our after-school program, our update today, and our plans is to begin at Dresden and both Martin sites on the Monday following Labor Day. We are ready to go at Dresden. We are ready to go at Martin Elementary. We've not been able to hire staff at Dresden, at Martin Primary at this point. We're still working on that. We need a director. We need some help. We've really not found a person that we're comfortable with directing. And so in saying that, our goal is still to try to open that date, but we may open the two sites and have to push that one back. We can't open until we have the appropriate number of folks there. We even offered some of our teachers that they're willing to participate in that and us pay them and then come and help with after school and be quote tutoring also, and try to recruit some interest there. So 2 of the 3 programs are in good shape. We'll be up and running. we're still working on that other one, and as soon as we can get folks hired, we will do that. That hiring is an issue, not just here. As I hear in the county, MTD's got 100 jobs open, Champion Homes trying to hire people. We've tried to hire extra cleaning day porters at every school, and people are just not out looking for jobs at this point. So that's an issue. But that's an update on after-school programming. You all have questions or concerns?
Appreciate you getting going.
Yes. Now, we will, and I think you all had conversation in the last meeting, we're looking at adjusting and raising our rate some. We can pay our people a little more money and make folks be consistent with showing up. We know what we're expecting to have as far as the number of students, those types of things. So we'll give you an update when it's up and running, as I do my weekly emails, and I plan on doing for a while. When we don't have a board meeting, I'll keep you posted on the after school program, because I know, particularly in Martin and Dresden, you all get calls about that, and we're moving toward that. If you've not already heard, as of today, all children in Weakley County, we're feeding breakfast and lunch free. The USDA has extended what they're calling the SSO program, which stands for the Seamless Summer Option. It's kind of like what we did in the summer for free feeding. They're doing this nationwide for all schools through December 31st. So all of our students, regardless of income, will be fed for free at school. Now, a couple things that we have to decide on, and Ms. Snyder and I have had conversations. She's home with a sick child today. We have a couple of decisions. We either need to determine, are we going to continue to be what's called an open site or a closed site? When we were closed from March through the summer, we were considered an open site, which meant any child in Weakley County, regardless of their school age or not, up to 18, could come to our campuses and get a meal. And that was fine, because our regular school kids came. We were dropping off meals as cars came by, and those kinds of things. If you're a closed site, you don't open it up for students and children in your county that are not attending your school. Let me tell you where the difference is with that. And I'm all for, I think you all saw the summer, feeding as many kids as we can. If the government's going to pay for it, we can provide that service. I'd like to do that. The problem with us being open now as we're in school, it's hard for us to prepare how many we think may come. We had a pretty good idea when everybody was at home. And if we have an open site and parents are coming to pick up meals, we may have too many prepared one day. We might run out. And so Ms. Snyder and I are going to continue conversations. We may decide to be closed this time. And that would just be for students who are attending our school. That includes our MDE students. They still can come to school and get meals. We're preparing meals for them. They don't have to come every day. It may be twice a week, those kinds of things. But our lean now is to be closed, and we're still going to have some conversation. I'll keep you posted on that. The other thing that we have an option to do, and I'm in favor of us doing, over the last several years, we've had a real strong backpack program in our county. About 350 students, I think, over the last couple of years we've served. That's an issue right now with trying to get feeding or food delivered, trying to get workers to assemble in a large group, trying to get a facility to allow them to do that. The need is still there, but the group that's volunteered, it's not as easy for them to do that. Through this SSO program, we can do something similar to backpack, like we did in the summer. On Fridays, we can fix meals for kids that get them through the weekend. And so we intend to do that. It would take a little work on our part to find out how many children. We would first address the ones that have been in the backpack program. But if we have a list, for example, of Dresden Elementary, if they have 50 kids that need food over the weekend, if we know that on Monday, our staff will have those meals bagged and ready for them to get on Friday. Now, we'll have to work out the logistics. Parents may have to come to get them. We can't haul all that food on buses. But the logistics of that will work out. But I would like us to do the weekend feeding because our kids are not getting backpack food. And I'll let you know on open or closed. I don't want to put Tristan in a bind. As you all know, we've had a couple of situations where she's currently been working in a cafeteria, keeping that going. I don't want to get our folks overwhelmed. We can't do what we need to do every day at the school. So that's good news that we're going to be able to expand feeding and that all children are going to be eligible. Anyone, have you had calls or questions about that?
I've received information from Backpack Feed program about trying to get that started, that they're intending on trying to get it started, but they are having difficulty. So will we coordinate that, working with them?
Yes, we'll, and maybe that'll release some of their stress and pressure right now, feeling like they're not doing what they normally do and feel like they're called to do. So we think we can fill that void.
Does anybody else have any contact with Lori or anybody?
Now that some of that information got out to district sooner than it did for us. And the reason being, they had state calls with nutrition directors this week, and Crystal's in cafeteria working. So she didn't get that information until after the fact. And so we're excited to move forward with that. An update with our operations beginning school. After 3 weeks, we've had a good protocol of children coming in, whether they're busing students, whether they're driving themselves, whether they're car riders. What I'm moving that we do, and I've talked with our safety people, beginning after Labor Day, on Tuesday, when we report to school, we'll have the same protocol for entering and exiting the building, but we are not going to temp screen kids. After 3 weeks of doing screening of temperatures, talking with all school nurses, we've not had one child that we've had to pull aside and send home with a fever. So that tells me that one, parents are doing a good job at home. If the kid's not feeling well, they're not sending them. And secondly, now CDC is really recommending that that's not as vital for you to temp screen. Now we're still going to have multi-entries in our buildings because it's important that we don't let our kids just have a whole group of people at the doors. Plus, we want them to use their hand sanitizers before they go to class each morning. So they'll take a little load off the teachers. We'll be still teaching our students that if you feel bad, all your teachers have a handless thermometer. They can check you in class, and we'll do that moving forward. So if there's not any objections, and the school nurses are comfortable with that, and as we said from day one, we'll be adding things and taking things away all year. And I think this is something that will take a little responsibility off of our staff because we don't feel like it's needed at this point. So we'll move forward unless you all have any concerns about that. MDE update. That's probably been one of the most challenging things that we've been trying to do. As of today, we have 561 kids who are signed up for our MDE program. Crystal Smith, and I think I maybe shared this with you all, has been our literacy leader at Martin Middle. She's now overseeing this program for the entire county, doing a great job. Betsy and Karen, some of the folks up here have helped pitch in and get everyone registered and online. Some of the hurdles that we're finding, it's not so much machines and devices right now as it is help and aid for students at home. And so it looks different in every building. For example, Dresden Elementary has a teacher, because they don't have as many students return, that she's in charge of those kids. That's what she's doing all day, every day. Making phone calls, tracking those kids through the program. Some of the schools, particularly our high schools, it's not as easy to do that. So what we've done is reached out to teachers and offered them extended contract time, an extra month pay to take care of some of these kids. Some schools, it's working great. Some schools, teachers are getting overwhelmed. So we're going to have to be flexible and readjust what we're doing. We don't want to run off any of our good teachers. In reality, we have more teachers in our building than we really need at this point. Now, we'll need them if everybody comes back in 2 months, but so when you look at numbers, we're going to be flexible. We may have to alter some schedules, do some things differently, but we're hearing from some of our best people who are trying to help us with this. I can't teach 5 classes a day with 4 preps and have 50 kids I'm in charge of. There's not enough hours in the day for me to do that and do a good job. So it looks different at each school, and we'll get through it and make sure that it's as functional as it can be. As I shared with you, we're at 3,300 kids in the building. We're down about 100 students from what we projected. Part of those was just an over projection for kindergarten. That happens sometimes. We'll move forward with that. Update on athletics and sports. Last week, this time, I was ready to pull my hair out because we were dealing with stuff all the time. I'll have to say we're in better shape with our sports as of today. All but one of our football teams is back practicing, working toward playing. We have one of our teams that's down, and will be down for a couple more weeks. I'll just say, and I've shared this with some of the principals and coaches, that it's important, we've all talked about it, it's important as best we can to get back to a normal way of life. Everyone wants to do that. But it's also important that as we maneuver and move into this, that we try to do it smartly and we try to do it wisely where we don't jeopardize having to stop things. And so it takes preparation on the coach's part, of being planned, for riding buses, of conducting practices, of having dressing rooms, of how they practice and organize. It takes responsibility on our players to be mindful of the things like keeping their hands clean, not getting on top of each other when they have to, being smart when they're away from practice and school. Us as parents and citizens and as fans, we all have a responsibility. We come to games to follow the rules. A couple of our neighboring schools have already gotten letters to us today about overcrowding and not following guidelines. What we don't want to do is get in a situation where we're told we have to stop playing because we're not following guidelines. So with the exception of one school, and what concerns me is I've been sharing numbers with you all, and I'm going to share them openly today, of where our numbers stand. The state's going to publish a dashboard next week statewide that lists number of positive cases and those kind of numbers that the community is concerned about. Our numbers are in much better shape. I'm going to compare to what it was August the 28th to today in a week. Today we have 13 students in our county that are home have tested positive for the virus. Last week we had 14, so we're down 1. Today we have 4 staff members that are home that have tested positive with the virus. Last week we had 5, so we're down 1. So positive cases, students and staff, we were at 19 last week, we're at 17 today. In quarantines, students that have had to quarantine because they've been told they've been in close contact. Last week we had 204 students that were in quarantine in the county. Today we have 147, so we're down 57 students in quarantine in a week's time. Last week we had 4 staff in quarantine. This week we have 11. And one of those was a cafeteria situation that we just could have handled a little differently. We wouldn't have large numbers as we've had. In saying that, the problem out of our 147 students that we have, 68 of those are at one school. And out of those 68, we have 2 of our athletic teams that are majority of those students we've had to completely shut down. And I'm just saying, in the middle of the season, if that's basketball season and this happens at a school, we're done playing ball for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And there's some things we can't avoid, but I look at some of the things that have happened that if we would do just a little bit better job of planning and preparing, we might not have to shut down the whole team or the whole, as we look at least right now, they've got almost half of their kids in high school at home. Will be for another week. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. And as we move forward, a lot of rumors out there that Mr. Frazier's going to ask for special vote, cancel practice. I'm tickled to death. I can go home and watch a ball game on the weekend. I know our kids are happy, but I just want us to do it the right way and moving forward. And I think I'll have to brag on it. One of our Westview team's bus driver sent me a message and bragged on Westview's football team. Coaches wearing their masks, kids doing what they're supposed to do because they want to play. They want us to have a season and they want to do what they need to do to continue to play. So that would be my hope as we move forward, that we'll learn better strategies and try to move forward. But it is good news. I'll say much better than it was last week. And so hopefully our active cases in the county were 181 today. 2 weeks ago, we were at 400. So that's a good positive sign. So hopefully we're we're in a much better place when we can keep it that way, so. I'm open, I know I've thrown a lot at you all, but I'm open for any comments, concerns, questions that you have.
Mr. Mark?
How are the substitutes situation going?
That's a concern. I know Mr. Kelly met this week with what we call a training. I think we had 6 new subs, and that correct, Jeff, that came for training, so we're still out beating the bushes. Requesting training and alternate plan would be an emergency situation. You know, we might have to combine some classes. We might have to ask EAs to be pulled from their normal duty and watch some classes. But right now, we'd love to have more. There's a need for more, but we've not started school and said we've got classes, we don't have them covered. So we're good there. Cafeteria scared me as much as anything. If we have 2 or 3 cafeterias go down at one time, you know, that's an issue. Hopefully we won't have this problem again.
You want to mention Mr. Kelso, Dr. Kelso?
And Dr. Kelso, we actually, Steve and I, we actually talked to the Martin Rotary Club last week, and Dr. Kent Kelso, the interim chair of education at UT Martin, said that he knows of a lot of folks who would be willing to substitute if we would just maybe raise the pay for
Non-certified.
on the non-certified side. So that's something we might want to consider.
We always can consider it.
Well, I think his comment was they don't want to work for minimum wage, which is, you know, what the, by the hour is about what it is.
But he knows, I mean, he said he knows folks who would jump at it, right? I mean, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
So
We're open.
that's what he said.
Mr. Hatler?
I would just say 2 things. First, if we have another breakdown of the cafeteria, Doug and I'll be more than happy to put on a hairnet and go to work. But I also would like to say on a serious note that I think Coach Couples and the staff at Greenfield deserve a lot of kudos for the way they handled their first home football game a couple weeks ago. I think I drove by there that night just to see. Of course, everybody came in with masked up, temperature check. Community Greenfield did a nice job of spreading out all over the body. Just kids and folks. I think it's important that we recognize Coach Couples and Greenfield.
And I think the Tissel Blade has changed their thought process. You know, originally everybody come in with a mask, get screened, keep your mask on. Now they backed off. Once you get in the stadium, you're social distance. You know, it's 100 degrees, no reason to have a mask on for social distance. So I appreciate you. I'll share that with Jim bragging on that.
You heard it.
I'm going back to the pay. Currently, we're at $56 a day if you're not certified, and we pay substitutes $80 a day if they have had or do have a teaching degree. And I'm open to whatever you all will recommend. If that will cure our ills.
I think a good increase to 58 and 82.
I'll just say,
Kelly.
61.
and I've addressed this with our teachers, and I didn't this year, but in a normal year, we spend a lot of money on substitute teaching. And I know we all have to miss sometimes. We can't avoid it, but sometimes it's almost that we overuse subs. I mean, to the tune of $150,000, which is a lot of subs when we're paying $50 back. And so I'm open if that's part of our issue.
But in a normal setting, we got plenty of substitutes available on the whole, right?
On a normal setting, where we'll get called is if we have a special training event. Maybe we've got a lot of teachers pulled out at one time, or a team in a school involved in a state tournament, or maybe one school's got the flu at one time. So normally it comes in cycles. Each school's got their own typical group they use. But now we're borrowing and begging from each other.
I just think we're in an emergency situation, and if pay is the only deterrent on the non-certified side, I think Dr. Kelso was mentioning that there are a lot of qualified folks, not certified, but just, you know, professional folks who'd be willing to jump in and help out, that they don't want to get paid $50, $6 a day. So, I mean, maybe it's something to investigate, and we can look at it next month, possibly. I don't know. It's just
And that's totally at the discretion of us as a board. The state has no requirements on what you pay, we can set that rate higher, but we want to set it.
What would be a significant increase? So 60, 75, in a desperate situation?
But do we know what
What
it
the
is?
counties are paying?
I asked that the other day. I think Union City pays non-certified, I want to say 75. I'm not sure, I think that's right. And I think they pay the certified.
Like we jump one, we need to jump the other.
I agree.
Yeah, that'd be a tough.
If we bump non-certified to $75 a day, bump certified to 100.
Save money on food.
I make that motion. I make that motion.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay, all right, so we got a motion
75 non-certified, 100 certified.
to, you want to look at that or just go ahead and
I
do
want
it?
to make that motion.
Motion, okay, is that the second? Mr.
I
Sims?
have a question.
Sims.
I know once you give something or take it away, is that for these times
Yeah, let's make it
forever?
for this year and then reevaluate.
Reevaluate,
Yeah. We basically have to approve salaries on an annual basis, anyway, so that's something we can revisit.
Okay, question about the time for the current school year.
Yeah.
Is there any
I would
any
just,
analysis you need to do?
I would just segue off that. You know, if we have a teacher that's having to quarantine or isolate, we might can count that on some of the staff today. So we might get reimbursed on that. I hadn't thought about that.
taking that one
Mr.
step,
Sims? Sorry.
taking that one step further, when we have a school bus driver crisis as well, what do they pay today?
It depends on what route they run. And we did raise those rates last year. We've not given any non-certified raises this year. Hoping to do a bonus after county commission meets in a month, but
I remember
there is a crisis for drivers. We need drivers, my mechanics. Mr. Byington's had to drive some. To be honest with you, they're not jumping up and down to take field trips, you know, like ball games. In the past, they usually argue over them, but they're just not doing that at this point. So we're always open to recruitment, and pay's an issue. We're not too far behind a lot of the districts.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional comments, questions? All in favor of this bump in substitute pay for the rest of the current academic year, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Mr. Kelly?
So I'm assuming that if anyone who substitutes tomorrow, this will be in effect.
That's right.
We're gonna have to change our application information.
Yeah.
Some things, I'm just gonna take it, Cheryl's not gonna be here tomorrow. So it's gonna take us a couple of days to get some things changed on our application and our handouts.
Should we have started this next week?
No, we can,
Okay.
I mean, their time sheets will come later down the road. We can- Are there other questions or concerns you all have?
Ms. Kelly?
Mr. Fraser may have already said something about this to you, but there is a law on the books, it's called the Tom Croman Pe Act, where our elementary students are expected to have 60 minutes of PE each week. And we thought that we were gonna get another waiver or relief on that law again this year. We found out right before school started that we were not going to get relief on that. So we're having to comply with that law. In order to do so, our PE teachers in the elementary schools cannot physically cover that. So we are having, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because an elementary teacher could say something to one of you about this, and I want you to be aware of what it is. In my years here at the central office, I think I've sent in either 2 or 3 teacher waivers. And tomorrow or Tuesday, I will be sending in about 75 or 80 teacher waivers. That's a big deal. And so the reason is because we're going to ask our classroom teachers to engage the students at recess once a week in a PE activity that has been provided by the PE teacher based on the PE standards, skills, and activities. So we had to apply for a waiver for every elementary, well, not every, but most of our elementary teachers in most of our schools are having to apply for a waiver to be able to cover that extra anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes of PE. So we will be sending those in, and I just thought you need to be aware of that. It's called the Tom Croman Pe Act, and we're going to have to comply with that law this year. Bethany, Alan, and myself have been working for the last several days, going around the schools and getting those waiver applications filled out, and we'll be sending those in.
There were a lot of districts in the state requesting a waiver. And what they said was that the waiver you'll get for 1 year, we'll let you do a teacher waiver out of their subject area and cover it for 1 year. So they go out for PE.
Well, the elementary students have most of them have an elementary gym that they do PE in, or sometimes they go out, yes. But the only way we could decide to cover this would be at recess. Whether recess is outside or inside or wherever it is, once a week. And so the PE teacher is going to provide the standard. Classroom teacher is not going to have to do any planning lessons or anything like that. The PE teacher is going to provide that form, and they just need to initiate and monitor that PE activity once a week during recess.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I've got a couple of things that I want to throw out. First of all, I've given you a book that I've got that I'm reading, not quickly. Waking Up White. We've got a couple of crises in our nation right now going on, and the pandemic is dealing with that. A lot of it all about race relations, diversity, and inclusion. This book was actually written in 2014. It's not a new kind of book, but it's about a upper middle class white woman living in the Northeast and her struggle with realizing that maybe she wasn't as engaging as she thought she was. So I'm reading it. It's really opened up some eyes, some things that and things that I'm seeing and things like that. I would encourage you. Not an easy read, but if you want to take a look at that and see, it's pretty interesting information about a life of a woman in light of the strife and struggle we're having these days. Well, the second thing I want to say, Josh and I talked to the Rotary Club last week about it. Community, they're interested in what we're doing, and for the most part, they're thankful. And I want to say, echo Mr. Frazier's comments as well. I didn't struggle with the decision as hard in my 20 some odd years as opening school, but I think our staffs, our teachers, administrators are doing an excellent job. They have done an excellent job of getting some things done and done right. I sleep better now, but it's not over. It's certainly not over by any means, and we haven't got this licked, but I'm certainly appreciative of what all has been done to prepare for our schools to be above and beyond for so many
And our
people.
kids are happy to be back in school.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, we're excited to be able to do it.
Only other question I've got is some of us have been called about, well, they think somebody's sick or they're going to school, they shouldn't be, or something like that. My opinion, and be sure I want to affirm this publicly, is if we get calls like that, we're not responsible for determining if somebody's trying to beat the system or not. Just let Mr. Frazier know that there's been some concern about that, about the fact that some people, we talked to a father the other day, he's upset about one of his child's being isolated, one's not. It's called strife at home, and I think we've heard all sorts of stories like that. So if there's anything, we're not responsible for determining right or wrong, and so just let Mr. Frazier know.
In our schools, school nurses are not the ones responsible to determine who quarantines, how long they quarantine. That's the health department. And I've taken a few of those calls. If there's a concern that maybe a child has a family member positive and they're still sending them to school, then what I will do, or the principal will do, pick up the phone call to the department and say, here's what I'm hearing, and then they'll take it from there. They won't tell me whether you heard right or not. They will say, we'll check our list, and if that's true and they're supposed to be home, we'll make that phone call today. So it's not our responsibility. We're a partner in trying to help get information to them, but that's the health department and state health department's responsibility.
Any other questions, comments?
I just two last things for you.
Okay.
One, in talking about the going back to the pay for substitute teachers. Now that doesn't impact our substitute, like for EAs, cafeterias and all that. We've not increased any of those rates. We're just gonna make sure we're talking about teacher raises at this point. That we're really contracting for special days. And the second thing, I'm gonna send an email out to all the staff tomorrow, just thanking them for opening, but then trying to reassure them. There's a lot of angst out there amongst teachers about testing and accountability and job security because of accountability and those things, and assure them that I have no intentions of basing decisions on academic performance during the middle of the pandemic. We're gonna do the best we can do, and hopefully that'll release some stress for teachers and students. Things as simple as, we agreed as a district, we're not gonna do homework the first 6 weeks, other than reading stuff at home, because we felt like, let's get everything back normal before we start hammering folks, and we can ease back into it. And so, saying the same thing, I plan on sending that email out tomorrow. I'll ask Mark to help me get it out to all of our staff, just thanking them and ones, trying to reassure them that we understand how difficult this is, and we're going to support their work. That's all I have.
Board members have anything else?
My grandson started school this year, he's in kindergarten, and I don't look that old and old. But the first day, he was scared to death, he was shaking to go into school, and then the second day, he run past the security. He really enjoyed it.
My middle grandson, who's now in first grade, said, told me, Granddad, I had the best week of school ever.
Yeah.
So even though it looks a little different, he's glad to be
I can't thank the staff and the school principals for everybody for what they're doing and going through.
I've heard
I can't
such
imagine.
good stories, such good stories.
Yeah.
If there's no objection, I'll consider our meeting adjourned.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah, it'll be a while, I'm sure.
I get caught up in my world, I don't know what's going on.
Say again?
Those archives are distractions.
They're archived. They're archived. You want me to send you a link, David? Well, I tell you what, if you ever need a link, just call me.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I need them this time, but I'm just saying, so we'll be fine for tonight.
Yeah.
Hopefully this message.
Oh, so.
I died.